I look at Rupert Lowe. In terms of politicians who I think are genuine, I believe that man to be genuine. I currently live in Tameside. I'm scheduled to meet the Reform team here this week, next week, because I want to help them. Oldham's next door because I'm safer where I am, Nick. Because if I lived where I wanted to live, my house would be burnt down. It's no more complicated than that.
Since January 1st, you've hit national attention. You've been on some huge podcasts. Unfortunately, GB News and Talk TV have ignored you, which I'm very surprised about. My only thinking there is their solicitors are worried sick because you name names, you talk about people, and I think maybe their legal departments are going, oh, we can't afford a big court case being sued by someone.
I don't hold it against them, Nick. I speak to the reporters offline. I supply them with information. They check in on me. I check in on them. There's I think you can see people who've seen me before. Because there's no ego here with me, Nick. I'm a very down to earth man, and I'm happy, to be in a room with people. I don't need to be the center of attention. I have no desire to be. It's not in my DNA to want to behave like that. If it was in the old days, Nick, I would be one of the policy team that dots the I's, crosses the T's, gets all the work together, and makes sure that the person I'm working for looks good and does the right thing. And that's how it was for me. And that's where I prefer to be. So I now realize that, as well as doing this and going on the podcast and having to go out of my own comfort zone, because all of this is out of my comfort zone, Nick. It's not just something I've learned to do. It's something I write, Nick. I don't put my face in front of people like this. That's and if you follow my work, you'll see that, and I believe I write well, and I communicate things in writing better. But I look at this, Nick, and I think we've got people on our side. We've got at least two national media platforms in terms of Talk TV and GB News on our side. Why would I want to pick a fight with them? Absolutely.
Exactly. I'm sure you don't.
I look at I look at Reform. I look at Rupert Lowe. In terms of politicians who I think are genuine, I believe that man to be genuine. He comes out with stuff regularly, and the way he presents himself, I think, there's a man with honor and dignity there who wants the right thing for this country in the same way as we do, and I support him. I'm not a Reform member, I'm not a political member of any party, but I look at Reform, and I don't want to pick a fight with Reform. I've seen, is it Ben Habib who, and they're arguing over the logistics of whether Reform is a private company, whether it's. I look at it in a more pragmatic way. I think the political party is in its infant system. It's developing. The systems and processes need to catch up, and we need to try and inform and shape. Now, if you believe that's, if there's only one show in town for people who believe like us, I think more and more so. The Conservatives are just playing at this. Labour will fight us till the end. The Lib Dems think we're the scum of the earth, yeah, and the other parties like Nick Tencone's party, UKIP and so on, they haven't got, at one, the infrastructure to mobilise nationally to actually deliver results. And secondly, if I'm pragmatic with where they're at, they're really more a pressure group to make sure that Reform don't forget about the white working class and don't forget about some of the issues that, and some of the stronger policies that otherwise would be overlooked. And on Saturday, I saw their march, and it was to do with remigration, wasn't it? Remigration event effectively means send them back, yeah. And what do we mean by send them back? It's not sending me back. It's not sending some Jewish person back or Ukrainian person. It's sending back criminals to the countries. If they're convicted and they're here, why bother? Why give them a second chance and third chance to stay here? Send them, and I think it's for the likes of us to take that righteous anger and frame it in a way that's palatable to as many voters as possible and inform and shape what Reform do. So I know at some point you'll clearly be speaking at events between now and the next general election, as will I. And I've took the decision where I will now speak at political events. So any political party, Nick, who's interested in hearing my perspective, I will go and speak at their events.
And that's how it should be.
We've got to take that genuine, legitimate white working class grievance and frame it in such a way where the genuine far right and the genuine extremists can't hijack it. That's how that's how I see my role for the next 3 years or so, Nick.
The people who talk about reform and ask me about reform all the time, my answer is this. Imagine all the political parties are buses and there's a destination you want to get to. And on the front of reform tells you where they're going. So get on the bus. But if they take a wrong turn or you realize they're not going where they said they were going to go, get off the bus and wait for another bus. So at the moment, reform are the only game in town because we know where the Tories are going to take us. Nowhere. We can see where Labour's taking us. It's to rock bottom. Lib Dems are mental, not a chance. The Greens are the most mental party.
They've become extremely radical, haven't they? They've become
absolutely. They would have us living back in the Stone Age, farming on bits of land, all of us, and starving to death. That's what the Greens would want for us. But reform's the only game in town. Are they perfect?
And they're speaking our language where they're genuinely taking the time. I mean, I've spoke to Rupert, and he's not the only one I spoke to, but I've spoken to Rupert. He took the time to call me and took the time to respond. Now, I'm sorry that I've got to acknowledge that for what it is. Here is a man who's took the time. I think it was on a Friday night he called me, but he took the time. And there are others in reform I'm trying to engage with. The challenge we've got, and you've seen it yourself, it's a party in its infancy, and it's still, in the same way it's developing its policies, there are still people being drawn to it who believe that reform will be this extreme right, racist sort of platform where they can promote themselves, and it won't. And if it won't, it's for people like us to make sure it doesn't. I'm my own. I mean, I currently live in Tameside. I'm scheduled to meet the reform team here this week, next week, because I want to help them. I've seen what they're doing, and they're in their infancy. It's like a child learning to swim. It's like a baby learning to swim. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, hold on, Roger, you live in this town. I live in Mosley. It's in Tameside. I live in this town. Oldham's next door because I'm safer where I am, Nick. Because if I lived where I wanted to live, my house would be burnt down. It's no more complicated than that. And I look at reform and I think, okay, help them, join them. And I say to people who ask me, well, go and join. Go and join, be part of the solution. If instead of complaining about things, we're now in a different space. The space we're now in, we've never been in. Not in my lifetime, Nick. We've never been in this space. We've got national media agencies who will amplify the issues we care about. The likes of Charlie Peters, the show after show on GB News, Talk TV, daytime, nighttime. We've got a whole host of podcasters. They call us the alternative media. I have a different term. It's the majority media, because the majority of people now engage in platforms such as yours, in this sort of podcasting sort of world. The majority of people engage in this arena. We've got these people on our side. We've got more and more respectable, professional people having these conversations. Everywhere I go, I sit in rooms with doctors, with professors, with accountants, with lawyers. They're of this same mindset. This country has lost its way. Our democratic systems and processes have broken down, and they are being exploited by individuals who do not have this nation's best interest at heart. And we have to reform our society and our way of life to protect our way of life. Otherwise, what will follow does not bear thinking about.